Why did Britain need silent killers in World War II? I'm Jon Mason, and you're watching the Warroom Library. Today I'm reviewing Hand of Steel by Rupert Butler. And after Dunkirk, Britain had a problem. The army had been booted off the continent, Europe was under the Nazi boot, and morale was on the floor. But Winston Churchill wasn't one for sitting still. He wanted to hit back hard, fast, and nasty. He called for specially trained troops, the hunter class, he said, to raid enemy coasts, cause terror, blow things up, and vanish like ghosts in the night. He called it butcher and bolt. And out of that came the Commandos. These were volunteers from the regular army. Really tough guys who wanted to take the fight to Hitler. And the training, crikey, the training was something else. It was held up at Achnacarry Castle in the Scottish Highlands. They forged these men into steel. 6 weeks of pure hell. Mountain marches in freezing rain, river crossings on ropes, live ammunition exercises, cliff assaults. But the part that really stays with you is what they learned when the lights went out. And here's something most people don't realize. Do you know what the black stuff was that the Commandos smeared on their face or smeared across their faces during the night raids? Well, if you stick with me, I'll tell you what it was in the end. William Fairbairn and Sykes were hard men from the Shanghai Municipal Police. Between them, they'd been in hundreds of street fights. You know, real ones. Back alley stuff, no rules. Fairbairn had the scars to prove it. Knife wounds across his arms, his legs, even the palms of his hands. These were not office men, and they taught the Commandos something they called gutter fighting. This was not a sport, there were no rules, it was just kill or be killed. And they designed the weapon to go with it. They designed the Fairbairn-Sykes dagger, an absolutely beautiful thing, a 7-inch blade, double-edged, needles sharp, and it was made by Wilkinson's sword for one purpose only, silent killing. But there was nothing ceremonial about this knife. It was built to penetrate a rib cage with a single thrust, silently, hand over the mouth, a quick thrust, and job done. They practiced this over and over, belly down in the mud, heart hammering, inching through the heather in pitch darkness. One mistake and it's over. Get it right and you're the last thing a man ever sees. That knife became something more than a weapon. It became a symbol. Today, that dagger still appears in the insignia of British commandos. The SAS, the Royal Marines, even commando units in Belgium, Holland, and Australia. And there's even a solid gold Fairbairn-Sykes dagger in the Commandos Memorial at Westminster Abbey. Not a rifle, not a grenade, but a knife. Because that's what the Commando stood for. Close in, silent, deadly, and yet through all of the grim work, the British humour never left them. Dry jokes while covered in mud, calling a near miss a spot of bother, larger than life characters like Jack Churchill charging into battle with a sword and bagpipes. It kept them all human, and nowhere does that humanity shine through better than the raid of Vaagso in Norway, December 1941, during the Boxing Day period. It is freezing cold, there's snow on the ground, ice on the rocks. The fish oil factories there were producing glycerine for the German explosives, which was vital stuff for the Germans. And the Commandos were sent in to smash them, sink shipping, grab prisoners, and make Hitler very, very nervous about Norway. And overall, it wasn't just Norway. It was Italy, France, Greece, and other countries. And the Commandos launched daring raids across Europe that eventually outstripped even what Churchill himself hoped these men could achieve. So if you go back to that Vaagso, Norway thing, the ships steam in under grey skies, naval guns open up, star shells light the fjord like daylight, landing craft grind ashore, you know, the guys pour out, green berets, you know, weapons ready. Every inch of the Achnacarry training was switched on. And in all the chaos, you know, of the landing, you know, an officer jams his leg badly between the boat and the rocks. Crunch. Proper painful, you know, in freezing water. And does he quit? Not a chance. It's one of those things with British humour. It's a walk it off, and he limps on, leads his men away. Pure commando stuff. And as they push into town, the fighting turns fierce. Some of the commandos are captured and taken prisoner. And then this perfect little moment that only war can throw up happens. Amid the smoke, the gunfire, the house-to-house fighting, one of the German guards slips on the ice. Down he goes, rifle skittering, you know, away along the frozen ground. And before anyone can react, one of the commando prisoners, one of the guys they'd just nabbed, picks up the rifle and hands it straight back to the guard. I mean, can you picture it? Normally these guys have been trained to kill, and here he is, the guy being the perfect gentleman. So bullets cracking, factories starting to burn, commanders moving like silent death throughout the streets, and then there's this daft flash of bewildered politeness. Here you go, Fritz, mind the ice. The author, Butler, tells it with this lovely dry humour, almost winking at you from the page. It's really fun to read. You know, only the British would spot that moment, and only the British would remember it. So, fighting at Vaagso was proper sharp. German mountain troops put up a real scrap, but the commandos did the job. The factories were blown up, the ships were sunk, and the prisoners were taken. And Hitler, well, he got so jittery that he poured thousands of extra troops into Norway. And those troops could have fought somewhere else. That one little raid had very big ripples. Oh, and that black camouflage stuff I mentioned earlier, that the commandos used on their raids for their faces, was burnt cork. Simple, cheap, effective, very British, something cheap, something easy to find, you know, and that's the magic of this book, you know, the silent killing, the brutal training, the daring raids, but also, you know, the slip on the ice, the limping officer who wouldn't quit, and that daft little moment of humanity that makes you laugh and shake your head. So, Hands of Steel by Rupert Butler. I would absolutely recommend this book. Go and pick it up, give it a read, and I'd like to see what you have to say in the comments. So I'm Jon Mason, and you've been watching the Warroom Library. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll catch you next week.